Jessica Smetana.
Welcome to yet another edition of Golic and Smetty. Mike Golic Sr. here along with Jess Smetana. And wow, Jess, I mean, listen, it's football season, so there is a ton to talk about. But, I mean, stunning. Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays, his Achilles. I know it's not official yet at the taping of this, but his Achilles is gone. He's going to miss the year.
You seem very confident in that.
Oh, did you see that? They showed slow motion of the pop.
Yeah.
I mean, it
was a big night for Twitter doctors.
Oh, yeah. Boy, you're not kidding about that. One of the more amazing things that I saw, and I know you saw it as well, was the game started, at 8:20, I believe, Eastern time. At 6:01 Eastern time, a couple hours before the game, some guy named David Zaslav tweeted, Aaron Rodgers is going to tear his Achilles on a rain-drenched MetLife turf in 2.5 hours. 2 hours and 24 minutes later, that's exactly what happened. That has 10 million views. I mean, stunning before we get into what happened. But, I mean, that guy, I hope he's playing the lottery.
Yeah, I also love – so David Zaslav is the CEO of Warner Brothers, and this is not – I assume the real David Zaslav, but some fake David Zaslav, which is funny. I don't know why there would be a parody of – I mean, I guess I do know why. Anyways, yes, Mike, I don't know. There's so many things to talk about here. For one, you've seen players come forward now, like David Bakhtiari talking about how this is because of the turf. I'm curious what your thoughts on that are. You see Zach Wilson come back in now and have to start for the Jets after he had to take the back seat for the Aaron Rodgers trade earlier this summer. Nathaniel Hackett, who came from the Broncos to be the offensive coordinator for Aaron Rodgers, now is calling plays for a different quarterback. Peyton Manning had a funny comment during the Manning cast where he was like, basically like Nathaniel Hackett right now is just like tearing up his playbook. He doesn't know what to do. It's incredible. I can't believe that this happened. I know the Jets are cursed. Their team is cursed. Their fans are cursed, but I still watched it happen live and could not believe in the first drive of the game, he is potentially now out for the season.
And just again, as we're taping this, it has just come over the wire that he is done for the season, and it is Achilles, something we all knew. So this one was pretty easy for the Twitter doctors to look at. The thing about this, Jess, let me just say, as a former player, I can relate to this. 1991. Probably before you were born.
Well before, but yes.
All right. Oh, we don't need the well before age shamer, okay? We don't need the well before. It was just a couple of years, okay? You were born, 94? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. That's 3 years. So, 1991, our Eagles, which had the best defense in the league for a couple of years, were starting that season in Green Bay, and we were... there wasn't all the DraftKings out there of the world that had all the odds, like there's so many places you can get now, which we'll get into the Jets odds right now. But we were one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. First game of the season, we're playing Green Bay in Green Bay. Bryce Pop hits Randall Cunningham in the knee, blows his knee out. As a defense, we're on the sideline going, no way that just freaking happened. No way. That's when we went through. Jim McMahon came in to be a quarterback, as well as Jeff Kemp, Brad Cable, Pat Ryan. All those quarterbacks we had, we obviously didn't do what we needed to do that year and win. It was horrific. So, New York Jet players, I know your pain in this. When they were considered one of the best teams in the AFC, that they were going to make their run, and then this happens 4 plays into the game. He is done for the year. Just stunning. I text Djokovic right away, Mr. Jet fan. And he said, everybody is surprised but me. He goes, I knew this was coming. The Jets are just
I believe
waiting.
Him.
Oh, yeah. Fans are just waiting for the glass to be cracked and the water to be dribbling out of it. But
are we sure he's not running the David Zaslav burner account?
So true. But just what you said, now Zach Wilson comes back, who has quarterbacked this team. But you have to understand, it's a different offensive coordinator, and they brought in new receivers as well. You obviously still have Garrett Wilson, but new receivers that Aaron Rodgers has been getting acquainted with. Zach Wilson's been getting second-team reps, which isn't a ton, and now he has to kind of reacquaint himself with the offense, which is going to be his now with Nathaniel Hackett and the receivers, it is definitely a domino effect. But I am absolutely stunned. 4 plays. Each time he went back to pass 3 times. All 3 times he ended up on the turf. Last one blowing the Achilles out. I don't even know what to say other than I've been there. I know that feeling. And now you just have to collect yourselves, because you know what doesn't happen? The season doesn't stop. And oh, by the way, they play the Dallas Cowboys next week. So, I mean, you want to talk about having to put that injury aside and get ready for one of the best, if not the best defenses in the NFL coming up.
Yikes. They did end up winning the game.
Yes.
So your point about, being on the defense and watching the starting quarterback go out, like the Jets defense really played well in this game, forcing 4 turnovers. Josh Allen threw some spectacular arm punts last night. A couple arm punts and just one really bad interception.
Arm punts?
Actually, maybe 2 bad interceptions and 1 really good arm punt. The first one was on 3rd down, and it was like a bomb into the end zone to the Jets player. Jordan Whitehead had 3 interceptions last night. Like, the Jets defense deserves a ton of credit. I don't know what's going on with the Bills offense on the counter side of that. Like, they look deeply broken. Josh Allen made some really bad mistakes, like I mentioned. They were like able to move the ball and then not move the ball at all. Like, it was just a tough night for the Bills, and it took an entire overtime, part of an overtime period for the Jets to actually come and win the game. It wasn't like it, was easy for them either, but it's astounding. Talk about like not giving up as a team. They still beat a divisional team in the game despite Aaron Rodgers going out in the first drive. So kudos to that.
Yeah, listen, and even when Rodgers got there, I had said this team is going to go as far as their defense takes them. Jets defense is going to be one of the best in the league. They had 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, 3 interceptions. I mean, and unfortunately, that side of the ball is going to be asked to do in the area of that all the time, because the offense is going to be okay. I don't expect Zach Wilson to have this unbelievable blowout year now where he's going to all of a sudden be incredibly great. One of the best pickups for them, Jess, was Dalvin Cook. While Breece Hall looked great coming off the ACL.
He did, yeah.
To be able to have Dalvin Cook actually had more touches in this game than Breece Hall did. So I think that was a great pickup for them. They're going to need that. That O-line is going to need a good running game so play action can slow down the pass rush a little bit, especially this week against Dallas. But they did, because their defense is going to be a great defense. They're going to be in all the games. Aaron Rodgers just ended up giving them that luxury now, because look at when Tom Brady went to Tampa and they won the Super Bowl. Now, you don't win the Super Bowl without Tom Brady, but they weren't winning, even getting to the Super Bowl, without their defense and how well the defense played. So now they had more balance of great defense, but the offense could score and bring you back. Now they lose that. So a lot back is on the defense yet again. But you're right. This turned out to be an excellent game all the way to a Tyler Bass Bills field goal, 50-yarder, doinking off an upright with 5 seconds to go, down to 2 seconds to go as the clock was running down to make it to go to overtime. And then the rookie undrafted free agent, Xavier Gipson, having the punt return on what was a bad punt. It was a line drive punt, which gave the returner some room. Started right, went
Should've
left.
Arm punted it.
Yeah, exactly. You like the arm punt. Great block by Chaz Surratt for the Jets, which turned out to be illegal. There was a leg whip in it that wasn't called. But, hey, if it's not called, then it wasn't a penalty, but it was.
Yeah.
And they do get the win. And that's the most important thing. Their odds, though, on the DK draft book, they were plus 1,600 for the Super Bowl. It's now at plus 6,000. And I don't know who's going to touch that one, because I just can't see Zach Wilson leading this team to the Super Bowl. But give them all the credit in the world for winning this game. Josh Allen, after the game, said, this game is on me. I lost it for us. There's 3 interceptions. And the fumble, the snap that hit him right in the hands on a shotgun, and he fumbled it, which led to a Jets field goal. But this
bad
is
mistakes.
Yeah, bad mistakes in a AFC that's very deep, in a division that's very good. I picked Miami to win this division, and Miami looked phenomenal.
That's looking like a good pick.
Yes, yes. We'll get into week 1 here in a minute. But and right now what happens, Jess, is as much as we talked about Aaron Rodgers and much as we looked to his debut at the Jets, he will become a ghost. That's what happens in the NFL when you're injured or not there. like holding out or something and not there, is you're forgotten about because he can do this team no good for the rest of the season. So it is all about who's there, what they can do on the field to go forward. So as much as he was talked about now, he's going to be an afterthought because they got games coming up and they got to get ready for him.
So going back to something I mentioned earlier, do you think that there is any sort of blame to be placed on the field conditions at MetLife Stadium?
I mean, listen, the turf is so much better than when I played, especially at the Vet. It was like, artificial turf over concrete. There are conflicting reports from the players' union to the NFL side of how much this new turf, which is so much better than the turf I played on, how much this new turf has been causing injuries. And the players' union is talking about, hey, we need it to be replaced. David Bakhtiari, Aaron's former teammate, even said, listen, they got the World Cup coming up here and they're changing all these fields to grass. So there must be something to it if they're changing it to grass. Listen, is grass the best surface? Yes, it's the best surface. Is it more economical to have artificial turf in there? Yes, it's more economical to have artificial turf in there. But we even see grass. Look at the Super Bowl last year in Arizona.
Super Bowl is what I was going to say.
Now that's grass. It's not stays there. They roll it in. So it's different kind of grass. Roots don't go as deep. And that stuff was really slick. So again, I guess depending on the kind of grass. But there is something to that. But do I think it's ever going to change? No, I don't. So while I think there's some validity to that, I don't think that it's going to be changed. I think we're going to have this kind of turf here, and they're just going to have to deal with it. We saw Dobbins for the Baltimore Ravens blew out his Achilles as well. There's injuries every week, almost daily, if not weekly, in the NFL. Unfortunately, it happened to the guy that was the biggest storyline going on. But the bottom line is the Jets get the win. They're 1-0 and a division win as well. So all ended well from the game standpoint. Now it's life without Aaron Rodgers that you just have to get used to. They're going to have to go find another quarterback. Tim Boyle was a quarterback on the practice squad. He can't be your backup quarterback. So there are quarterbacks out there like Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett, who are all on NFC teams. So do the Jets reach out for a trade there, of which they would get fleeced in a trade because everybody knows they're looking for a quarterback? Do they put a call into Tom Brady?
I knew you were going to say Tom Brady.
Do they
Tom
put
Brady,
a call?
who was just honored at a Patriots game over the weekend.
Do they put a call into Phillip Rivers? Do they put a call into Matt Ryan? Do they put a call into Carson Wentz? I mean, they have to do something, right, at that quarterback position.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I guess we will see what happens. Tom Brady, I think, is the funniest option. Yeah. I don't see it happening, especially because it's another team in the division. He seems like he's done, but also he's the guy who's faked his retirement before, right? So
I think until Tom Brady is put in the Hall of Fame 5 years from now, his name will be talked about all the time as far as coming back if there is an injury. So
let's throw Andrew Luck's name into the ring.
Yeah. Oh, why not? Why not? So that was Monday Night Football that took the headlines because of the injury to Aaron Rodgers. But there was a week one that started on Thursday and then all the games on Sunday that we will get to next, because there was some head-scratching play and some really, really good play as well, as there normally is. We'll get to that next. All right, Jess. Aaron Rodgers hurt, as we talked about. We put that by the wayside. Jets get the win. And there's Willow. There is Willow.
She never barks, but she got really upset with your joke about the Steelers before we started. And so she got up and she ran away.
Yeah, we're going to get to the Steelers and that debut, if you want to call
let's
it
not
that.
And say we did.
Let's go all the way back and start with the Thursday game where my son Mike and I did a live show out at Arrowhead Stadium as they opened the season against the Detroit Lions, dropped the banner that day. Chris Jones, who is now signed for at least for this year and will be back in the fold, was up in the suite watching the game. And we saw Kansas City probably in the first game of the season and the first surprise, losing 21-20 to Detroit. Now, they didn't have Chris Jones, we knew, but then a few days earlier, Travis Kelce hyperextended his knee, so he missed this game. So even with that, were you still surprised, Jess, that KC lost that game?
No, I wasn't surprised. I actually, as soon as we finished recording last week, I picked the Chiefs, and then the report came out about Kelsey, and I almost texted you and I was like, I'm changing my pick, because I was so, like 60-40 Chiefs over the Lions. I thought the Lions looked super impressive though, and I'm not that worried about the Chiefs moving forward.
No.
It's not like there were a lot of teams after week one that I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a tough year if you're a Bears fan, or maybe even a Giants fan. Definitely if you're a Steelers fan. But I'm not worried about the Chiefs. They still have Patrick Mahomes. I think they'll figure it out with the receivers. Losing Kelsey, though, is like, if you don't have Chris Jones and you don't have Travis Kelsey, those are your best two players, most important players not named Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
So yeah, I think that left a big gap open on the defensive side that Detroit was able to exploit and use, and they were able to move the ball really well. Jared Goff played really well. He had a good game. That's all they needed from him. And yeah, not surprised though, because bad luck for Kansas City on opening night.
What was interesting to me is, to wrap this one up quickly, is Travis Kelce. You're right. I'm not worried either. Kelsey's going to be back. Chris Jones signed. Now, real quick, Chris Jones signed he did kind of a Saquon Barkley without the franchise tag. He's in the last year of his deal, paying him about $19 million. He's still on that deal, but he got a lot of incentives that can equal about $7 million. But the first two of those incentives, I think $1 million for 25% for a percentage, $2 million for another percentage, of which he'll hit. That's just going to cover his fines. He was fined about $2 million, and you can't rescind those anymore. So he's going to need part of the incentives just to pay off the fine money, and then the rest of it is for like number of sacks, defensive player of the year, winning the Super Bowl. So in all honesty, Jess, he did not win in this. I mean, he could make a little bit more money. He still wins. He's going to make over $20 million. But as far as the deal he was looking for, he didn't get. And next year, he didn't get put in this deal with incentives that he couldn't be tagged. He can be franchise tagged next year, and it's going to be a little over $23 million. We know he wants in the $30 million, $30 million range. So this could go all over again for him next year. So I think they're happy he's back to playing, but I don't think he got the better side of this.
He did get a great visual, though, while the Chiefs were getting gashed on the defensive side of the ball, and he was just sitting up there in a box watching, which, like, if you're just a casual fan and you're not paying attention to all the details you just mentioned, you're probably like, yeah, okay, just pay him. We need this guy. Let's do it. So props to him on the visual.
So out of going to week one and start looking at some of the games, out of the teams where we had some expectations for, Giants we had some expectations for, Seahawks we had some expectations for, and the Bengals, I'll say Pittsburgh, and the Bengals we had some expectations for. Which of those three teams that lost do you worry the most about, that what we saw in week one may have some carryover?
The Bengals game was kind of perplexing. I know the weather was bad, and they announced Joe Burrow's deal, highest paid quarterback now, on Thursday night, right when the Lions-Chiefs game was starting. And you kind of hoped that they wouldn't repeat what they've done the last couple seasons, which is start out really poorly against, last year, the Steelers, divisional team, get sacked a bunch of times, throw a bunch of interceptions. Like, you'd think like, okay, this is the year that they need to actually put it all together in week one, beat a divisional team. And it's the Browns, right? Like, the Browns didn't play particularly well on offense. Right. It was not a big, I know the final score made it look like it was a bigger gap than it was, but this game was pretty close the entire time. Like, I feel like it's so disappointing to come out of the gate again like this, another year, second or third year in a row, looking like this after you have all this, success in the postseason. You didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but like, you were right there again, playing in the AFC Championship game, sign your quarterback, and you just can't do anything. Like, your offensive line that you've known has been a weakness now for years still looks like a big weakness. Yep. And like, Myles Garrett is phenomenal. He is a great player. So part of it you have to give him credit for just being a complete game breaker. But I thought it was very disappointing. I don't necessarily think they'll play this badly moving forward. I think it was like there was a combination of a few things that was just a perfect storm, like literally. And like I said, the weather was terrible. It was like driving rain in Cleveland. But it has to be fairly deflating and disappointing to come out of the gates like this and lose to a divisional rival in week one and just pull Joe Burrow out before the game even ends.
And the one thing about it is Joe Burrow's actually had a tough time in Cincinnati against Cleveland since he's been in the league. I think he has only one win. So they kind of have his number kind of like he has the number of KC a little bit, which is it's kind of weird, tough to figure out. By the way, if I had a body like Myles Garrett, I'd never put a shirt on in my life. I mean, dude is just a freak of what he looks like.
Amazing athlete.
Really, really, really is. Did that little step in before the pass rush, kind of the Euro step thing. When I look at this, the Seahawks was a head scratcher because the Rams we were looking at to have a horrible year. They're the youngest team in the NFL. And all of a sudden the Seahawks lay an egg like that. Both their tackles get hurt on the offensive side of the ball, and their line has been a question mark. And when I did Gojo and Golic earlier, we talked to Darius Slayton actually came on, which was impressive because over the decades I've done this, when a team looks bad and we're supposed to have a guy on that's already been preset for a Monday or Tuesday, a lot of times they cancel. A lot of times you don't do it. But kudos to Darius Slayton. He came on. He answered every question about just what went on. And I called that game for Westwood 1. It was horrific there. Yeah. I worry about the Giants. You know, they make the playoffs last year, get a win. So the expectation is take that next step. But they still don't have that passing game. They brought in Waller, who they're going to rely on a lot. Paris Campbell, I don't think had a catch in this game. They brought him in as well. It's still going to rely on the running attack. And if I'm a defense, I'm just stacking against that run and making them throw the ball. Especially in bad weather, you're not going to throw the ball well. And it didn't look great. Quick side note, before that game, I always go down on the field to talk to the players and the coaches. And U.S. Open, Coco Gauff was down there. So it was kind of cool. I was close to her. They're kind of two champions next to one another. You know, we were.
That's what I would have said.
That what you thought?
Couple of champions cutting it up.
Like who's that talking with Golic down there? Is that what you would have said?
Yep. Yeah. Which one just won the U.S. Open?
Yeah, we'll get into that later. She
$30 million playing tennis or something like that.
Man.
I don't actually know if that's how much, but I know you win $3 million for winning the U.S. Open, which is
she got $3 million, runner-up got $1.5 million. But, I kind of worry about the Giants a little bit. Again, they won't be this bad. 40-0, the talent disparity in the league is not that great. This is one, as I'm calling the game, just got away from them. You know, blocked kicks, catching balls and having them knocked out of your arms. I mean, just anything that could go wrong went wrong for the Giants. And if you play long enough, it happens. So I still think they're going to be good, but I do worry about the fact that I don't know, even though Daniel Jones had all career highs, passing yards, completion percentage, rushing yards, I don't know how that team is going to perform overall. And then we get to your team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. You lose Cam Hayward too. Might lose him for a few weeks. Such an anchor on that D line. But how disappointed were you? San Francisco looked like everything we had talked about. Yeah. And just absolutely took it to your Steelers.
Look, it was a tough day in my household. My boyfriend's a Giants fan. I'm a Steelers fan. Both of those games started almost like the exact same way, with one team looking like they forgot that there was a game happening and the other team just completely dominating on both sides of the ball. The Steelers look terrible. Like, there's not even one thing you can blame this on. It's not like, oh, the quarterback played bad, or, oh, the offense scheming was bad. Like, it was like a combination of several things that went poorly. Plus, you couple that with the fact that the 49ers have a great defense and they have really, really good, a really good running back, great receivers. I mean, Christian McCaffrey gashed the Steelers. Like, yeah. And it was just bad. And to lose at home like that in week 1, especially after all the preseason hype, that's why I said I didn't trust the preseason hype. Like, I trust Mina Kimes with my life, but I don't want anyone to hype up my team in the preseason, because the preseason, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean anything. I think it was Kenny Pickett after the game who was like, the 49ers were better than any of the defenses we played in the preseason. And he's right. That's why it doesn't matter how many completions you make and touchdowns you throw. It was just bad. I like the Giants, I worry for them moving forward if they're not able to adjust in, once you're down 10-0 and then it's 17-0 and you're not able to adjust and do anything offensively. I mean, we all saw the stat that was like 49ers had 199 yards of offense and the Steelers had 1. That's bad. Like, how you can't let that happen. Like you said, the talent disparity is not big enough in the NFL where you should be having blowouts like this, especially at home in week 1. It was just, I don't even know. It was very disappointing, Mike. But yeah, tough day in the Smetana household.
So sorry to hear that. I'm sure Willow had a good day. I'm sure you fed her some nice treats. I would hope anyway that you at least took care of the dog. I think 2 of the most surprising wins, but then I want to get to the best game.
She's a Ravens fan.
Yeah. The Buccaneers beating the Vikings was a bit surprising, and certainly the Rams beating the Seahawks, as we touched on, beat them 30-13. But the best game, I think, without a doubt, especially if you love offense, was the Dolphins and Chargers, 36-34. Tua throws for 466, 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill, 215 yards, 11 catches, 2 touchdowns. This and now defensively, they gave up some points, no doubt about it. But the Chargers offense is a good offense. But what a game, 36-34. They get to 36, mix the extra point. You think this is going to be Herbert bringing the team down for a game-winning field goal to win. They don't get it. But still, I think the best game of the weekend.
By far the best game of the weekend. I mean, I know I said last week, like, wow, this is going to be a great week 1. Turned out there were some big duds in this week 1.
Yeah, there was.
And this game was not one of them. This was the only game that I have the new like YouTube TV Sunday Ticket Red Zone package.
Right.
And like midway through the afternoon slate, I was like, all right, I'm just watching Dolphins Chargers. This is the only thing that is really catching my attention right now. And it was great. I mean, Tua played amazing. And when Tua's playing that well, he's got incredible weapons. Tyreek Hill, like, how do you defend Tyreek Hill? How do you Jalen Waddle? Like, they've got an offense that knows how to really use their best weapons and like spread the ball out, get the ball where it needs to be. And when Tua's playing that well, his passes are that accurate, I don't know how you're supposed to stop them. And the Chargers have like, I mean, they're like the Jets in some ways. They're very cursed, especially at the end of games. And so when I saw the Dolphins miss that extra point, and it was only a 2-point game, I still, in my heart of hearts, was like, there's no way. The Chargers they blow these games time and time again. I mean, we saw them give up one of the biggest leads in playoff history not that long ago against Jacksonville. And it just seems like their end of game management, whatever it is, and it's not just the end of the game. Like, there's issues throughout the game as well. But especially you notice that when they're in these tight games and they cannot get it done, it's brutal to watch. And so, yeah, credit to the Dolphins, who did it without their starting left tackle or right tackle as well, who, you know, is out right now. But they looked really good. And I think the Aaron Rodgers injury last night, that is the biggest piece of news for the Dolphins, bigger than any other result this weekend, because the Bills did not look great. I imagine they will look better moving forward, but they're not going to play that bad all season. But they didn't look good. They'll fix some things, but they didn't look great. The Patriots did not play well against the Eagles. Mac Jones, probably the worst quarterback in that division. And now the other quarterback in your division, who was someone you put ahead of Tua, is out for the season. So now you're game planning for Zach Wilson instead of Aaron Rodgers twice this year.
Yeah,
so
I mean, the
wide
passing
open for the Dolphins.
It is. The passing offenses in the East all of a sudden aren't great. I mean, Josh struggled with the 3 interceptions, but that'll be better. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers out and Mac Jones. Nobody thinks that offense is going to be a juggernaut offense, even though they do have an actual offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien this year. But Miami does. I'll end it on this. Whether it's short passes that receivers turn into long gains or long passes, Tyreek Hill averaged 19.5 yards a catch. Jalen Waddle averaged 19 yards a catch. Alec Ingold averaged 17 yards a catch. Braxton Berrios, 14 yards a catch. Durham Smythe, 14.7. So they're just chunking the yardage on these teams and putting pressure on the defense. And it's fingers crossed every week that Tua stays upright. Because he was having the beginning of the year of his life last year before he started getting hurt. So that's a kind of a week 1 wrap on the most popular sport in America, which brings us to the second most popular sport in America. That's college football. We chat about that next.
I mentioned it was a tough Sunday in the Smetana household. Saturday, not so bad, Mike. It was a great college football weekend. We had, of course, the Notre Dame NC State game, which we will talk about. But the biggest game of the weekend was the Texas-Alabama rematch from last year. Last year, Texas lost, in dramatic fashion. Their quarterback got hurt. There were some questionable officiating decisions. Their fans felt like they got cheated out of what should have been a win against Alabama. So they got to rematch this weekend, primetime game on ESPN, and they actually won it this time. Mike, did you watch any of the Alabama-Texas game, and what did you think?
Oh, I absolutely did. Actually, Mike called that game for Learfield, so I do the old thing where I turn down the sound on the TV and sync up the radio, so I hear Mike's call. But, the Notre Dame game was a noon game, which ended about 6 hours later because of the rain delay, as you said.
Which terrible.
We'll get to weather delay. I shouldn't say rain. It was lightning. I watched all of this game. And remember last year, Quinn Ewers started out really well in this game and then got his shoulder hurt, and he was done for the game. As we know, it was a 1-point game. And we thought for Texas, all right, 1-point game, you lost your quarterback. There's no moral victories, but it was kind of a moral victory. But they went on to not really do well the rest of the year. So this year, it's kind of past the point of you can't moral victory these things. You need to win. And they did, and this is a game going into the fourth quarter. Alabama had the lead 16-13. And to Texas's on the road, to kudos to them. They score the next 14 points. They're up 27-16 in this one and end up with a 10-point win. What's interesting, we both know Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees played quarterback at Notre Dame. My son Mike was actually on the team when he was the quarterback, and then he was the OC at Notre Dame. And last year didn't really have a passing quarterback. After Tyler Buckner got hurt, Drew Pine came in, didn't really have that. Now he goes to Alabama as the coordinator, and he still doesn't have a throwing quarterback, right? I mean, what a tough situation for him and that offense, because we talked about the top teams this year: Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, all having to break in new quarterbacks, right? And now with Jalen Milroe, 2 weeks in, and they have a loss here, and it's not a great throwing offense. They have to lean on running. So if you're playing against them, you're going to jam up the box and make him throw to win. So they're kind of in a tough situation where Quinn Ewers, he can toss that ball around. And, and Mike even said when he was on the field before that game, normally when you look at Alabama and their athletes, you just go, wow. I mean, these are some good looking athletes. He said, when I was down on the field, I'm looking at the Texas players going, they look just as good. They look just as athletic. So now, we keep asking, is Texas back? Is Texas back? Well, they showed pretty early here with a good, nice, convincing win over Alabama. They might be back. So a great win for them.
It's really interesting when we talked about it earlier in the season when we were talking to the head coach at Washington, how stacked the Pac-12 is with quarterbacks this season. And it seems like the inverse proportion of that is what we're seeing in the SEC, where there's been a lot of turnover, and partially because guys are getting drafted or, there's the portal, of course. But the situation at Alabama is interesting because they do have a couple guys that they recruited that were highly recruited players, but neither of them seems to be the perfect fit. And Jalen Milroe, who started the game, who we talked about last week with Ryan Nanny, like he's a good quarterback when he's on and he's accurate, but he overthrew some balls. He held on to the ball for too long. Like he looked lost at times out there. And like, I wanted so badly for Alabama to win just because I'm a hater. And Alabama's so good now that I'm just like, I don't even care if they win everything. Like, that's fine. I've accepted the fact that they're like the best team in the history of college football. He throws this bomb pass into the end zone. And I'm like, okay, like he's starting to figure it out. And then the next drive, it's like he overthrows an easy touchdown. I'm like, it was so frustrating to watch, but it is interesting. Just looking at the landscape right now in college football, seeing how differently the talent is distributed versus what we're used to. And certainly Alabama's got some questions they need to figure out once they get into the SEC West portion of their schedule, because those games are going to be just as tough as this Texas game. Like you said, Texas players, they were big, they were physical, they matched up really well against the Bama players. And I don't know. I don't want to be the guy who's like the Nick Saban dynasty's over, because I don't think it is, but it certainly is a worrisome situation.
It's kind of like, Jess, we even when Tom Brady left, we would still give Bill Belichick the benefit of the doubt, right? Even though if he made a questionable move like last year, no real offensive coordinator experience, kind of wasn't sure where it was going to go. We were like, well, it's Bill Belichick. So we give him the benefit of the doubt. And it didn't work, right?
It didn't work. Yeah.
He hasn't been in the playoffs since Tom left. Look, he's a Hall of Fame coach. He walks into the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that. But you give the benefit of the doubt all the time. We need to see this team do something, right? And now it's the same with Nick Saban. Nick Saban gets the benefit of the doubt. When you give that much hardware, you get the benefit of the doubt. But eventually that runs out. And I'm not sure where they are because I'm kind of with you. I kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Remember, their loss wasn't a conference loss. As a matter of fact, there have been 6 SEC teams that have lost non-conference games, which is almost unheard of in the SEC. But the key is they're non-conference games. So the conference is still there to be had, but there's definitely questions at the quarterback position and other places for Alabama as well. They struggled on the O-line last year. They struggled in this game with the athletes on the outside rushing. They have a true left tackle in this who was struggling some in this game. So they have some issues to work out. So Texas in the latest AP poll is sitting at number 4. Sitting at number 18 is a team that none of us thought were going to be sitting at 18. Unless you were the head coach, Deion Sanders, then you knew you were going to be at least 18 or higher because that's he says, I win wherever I go. And he's certainly proving he wins wherever he goes. So they get the huge win in week 1 against TCU. Now they're playing Nebraska at home. Some people are saying, now let's see what happens. But Nebraska is not anywhere near this offensive juggernaut by any standpoint. But we wondered what their defense would do against Colorado. Close early on, and then Colorado starts to blow it open. They win at 36-14. They're now ranked 18th. Are you, as Deion would say, I believe, I'm getting my players to believe, do you believe, Jess?
I mean, I don't believe they're going to win the national championship.
Right,
I still think Georgia is the best team in the country, but I believe that they're a much better team than a lot of people were expecting when the season started. I think this game came down a lot to Nebraska's offense just really struggling. I think quarterback play was also a factor there. But Colorado, their wins total at the beginning of the season was 3.5. I think they're going to easily eclipse that. And the level of talent that they brought into this team in a year, I think can't be really overstated. Like he completely flipped the roster. I think that is why he received a lot of criticism, because you don't love to see a college football head coach force players to transfer because their coach got fired and a new coach came in. That's something that happens at a lot of college football teams when new head coaches come in. And I think that stinks. But the results through 2 weeks are there. We'll see what happens again when they start playing the conference schedule, which is going to be tough in the Pac-12. I mean, they've got Oregon coming up. This week they play Colorado State. Should win that easily. That's 3 games already. But then they play Oregon and USC back-to-back. Those are 2 teams with great offenses, and we saw Colorado let up 500 yards to TCU's offense in week 1, so that'll be interesting to see where they fall in terms of the rest of the Pac-12 talent, but it's an unbelievable story, and I think it merits all the attention it's getting. Game day is going to the Colorado game. Big noon Saturday is going Fox, to a 3rd Colorado game in a row for Fox. So this is also, I will say, week 3, one of the not a lot of great games this weekend. No. So I get it. Go where you know people are going to watch, because I don't know where else you're going to go this weekend. So Shedeur Sanders throws for 393 in this one. He's thrown for over 900 yards in his first 2 games. And about Deion, I believe to a point as well, because just the fact of what you said, that everybody's saying, well, now they're playing Colorado State, they should win that one easily. We never said that about Colorado of late. They've been awful. So he is making people believe right now that he has turned the team around. I think a lot of people don't like the way he went about it, because he's very boisterous, right? It doesn't mind talking, but also basically getting up in front of the team and saying, I brought my own luggage and it's Louis Vuitton, so a lot of you guys are going to be out. I think a lot of people don't like the way he handled it. But the reality is it happens every time a new coach comes in. It's just the way you handle it, and they don't like the way you handle it. He even said, listen, at the end of the day, I only really had 20 players who I told, you might as well leave. He said the rest of them left on their own or quit. He said, so I just think the way the message was delivered, people didn't like. But you know what? Deion doesn't care. He doesn't care. And all that matters is what his team believes in.
as I've said all along, he was successful as a high school coach. Then he went to Jackson State and was successful there. But to sit there and say, oh, as soon as you go to Power 5, you're going to be an instant success. I mean, come on. If you want to sit there and be mad at people because they didn't believe that, fine. You're just using that as a chip on your shoulder to put a chip on your players' shoulders. And you know what? That's cool because they're responding.
If it works, good, then keep doing it.
So keep doing it. You're winning. That's all that matters. So that's fine. I do believe they'll win against Colorado State, and then we'll get the test with Oregon and then SC back-to-back. But just us saying that means, wow, they have done, Deion has done something right there in the players he brought in. Finishing up college real quick, we have to do it because we're Notre Dame grads. Notre Dame goes to North Carolina State. What, it was an hour and 40-minute lightning delay of which players were eating hot dogs and brats. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Players eating hot dogs and brats, to stay fueled a little bit. Slow first half for them, horrible weather, but then took control in the second half to move to 3-0. Sam Hartman, again, does throw a bunch of touchdowns, but it was certainly not his best game. This was the best competition Notre Dame's played so far. He still did throw 4 touchdowns in this game, and Audric Estime ran for 134 yards, had a big 80-yard touchdown run. So competition was better, but Notre Dame did what they should do, right, Jess? This is what we haven't seen Notre Dame do times, have games closer than they should be, but they have basically had 3 blowouts, and it's exactly what they should be doing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think recent Notre Dame history has made fans very skittish about A, playing in Raleigh, where it seems like the weather always sucks.
Yes.
And B, lightning delays, because Notre Dame has lost some games that they were heavily favored in due to a lightning delay. Also due to not playing well. But
yeah, that adds into it. I was part of that one. My kids were part of that one against Tulsa. So yeah.
That one was bad.
Yeah.
So, or South Florida? Wasn't it South Florida?
One of those teams they should have won. It was a rain.
It was a bad
delay. It was bad.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyways, you're right though. Like Sam Hartman did struggle a little bit. The offense struggled getting the ball moving in the first quarter. The score was only 3-0 going into the delay, but after the delay, Audric Estime rips off a huge 80-yard run. They did some little offensive lineman shenanigans, lining up Joe Alt outside of the right tackle. I'm not sure if you saw that. Pretty nifty. Caught NC State's defense completely unbalanced and ran it in for the touchdown. And then after that, like it was a close game. Notre Dame let NC State score a couple touchdowns. Played a little undisciplined, like a few drives where penalties kept NC State on the field. More so than, playmaking, which you never want to happen. So it came closer than it should have. But then the final score was 45-24. And it really was like 45-17 until NC State scored in garbage time against Notre Dame's backups that were in at that point. So it's interesting to say, like, yeah, it started off shaky, not Sam Hartman's best game. But like you said, they still completely blew out this team in the fourth quarter. And, being able to beat teams that are not as stacked as your team in the fourth quarter is a really important thing to be able to do, because that's often where the difference is made in college football. You need to be able to do that to win games.
Close games out.
Not every game. Exactly. Not every game is going to be, you start blowing them out in the first quarter and then put your backups in. No, you need to play until the fourth quarter. And that's when you can see there was like a big talent difference, and Notre Dame's talent won out as NC State's quarterback threw a couple picks. Notre Dame secondary looks really good, Mike.
Yep, they absolutely do. So good one for them. They're undefeated. As you mentioned, games this coming week. I don't think there's one ranked game this week. Then next week, as far as Notre Dame's concerned, they get Ohio State coming to town. We'll have some fun talking about that one. But so college ball, a couple of weeks in. Colorado still the biggest surprise, and Texas with the big win. Coming up next, we have a couple of champions we need to talk about who has some incredible, one has an incredible resume overall, the other just starting on what looks to be an incredible resume. That's coming up next. All right, Jess, let's finish it up on the tennis court. Not you and I playing, because I would hate to embarrass you by beating you in tennis.
I could beat you in pickleball, but tennis, I don't know.
We definitely have to play. U.S. Open. Let's start quickly with Novak Djokovic. I mean, what a career that he has had. Now with his 24th Grand Slam, he's been in 72 Grand Slams. He's been in the final in half of them. and has 24 wins. I don't know what you can say, because Federer's retired, Nadal has been injured, and Joker, they've all been kind of put together, but Djokovic is kind of just taking it away now.
It's crazy that he's like still playing his best tennis at, like you mentioned, at his age. He is just a tennis machine. Like, you watch him and he is so automatic. It's astounding to watch him play tennis. And I think Ben Shelton put up a great fight in the semifinals.
Yes. Yeah.
Made it interesting, but Djokovic, like, he was born to play tennis. I don't know what else you can say either.
It is going to be interesting with the young guys. Like Alcaraz is 21 and Shelton is 20, they're right there. So some of the youth in here looks pretty good as we get going. And then talk about youth. Coco Gauff, 19 years old, wins her first Grand Slam, wins the US Open, and wins $3 million along the way. As I mentioned, she was at the Giants game, everybody mobbing her, and she truly look like, wow, I'm the celebrity here. It's pretty wild, amongst all these NFL players and such. But she's fun to watch. I mean, the way she moved, it's almost like you can't hit a shot that she can't get to.
Yeah.
The way she was running around that court.
Absolutely. And she was playing against the number one ranked player in the world right now, Aryna Sabalenka, who she's part of the Netflix tennis show. I'm not sure if you watched any of that, but she's a really, really good player. Yes. And I was nervous when I saw the matchup that it was going to be her versus Coco Gauff, because of course I'm rooting for Coco Gauff, but Coco Gauff was so locked in, Mike, in that third set. She, like you said, there was not a ball that she couldn't get, and she didn't give up on a single point and ended up winning some points that way just by like out hustling to each ball and hitting it back, and like Sabalenka making a couple mistakes there, not thinking she could, return what she was giving her. Like, it was a really good tennis match. And she was so dialed in. It was really, really cool to watch. And then as soon as she hit that final point, she just collapsed on her back. It was the coolest thing.
I loved seeing her face, her serious look when she's concentrating. Coco Gauff was incredible. And Sabalenka, listen, if you're playing pro sports enough, you can see it at times. You could just see after points she lost that she was just so frustrated. Like, how the hell did Coco Gauff get to that? How did she make that play where you almost throwing your hands up? And players today look at their coach so much more, I think, than back in the day. It's almost like, what the hell am I supposed to do here? Just amazing. But then there was the picture or the video going around of when Coco Gauff was 8 and her parents brought her to the U.S. Open. Her dad or both her parents brought her to the U.S. Open to watch Venus and Serena play. Mm-hmm. And now here she is with Serena in the crowd watching. Here she is winning the U.S. Open in 19. I mean, the symmetry there is incredible.
Yeah, it was really cool to watch. There was also a video of Sabalenka smashing her racket afterwards. I'm not sure if you saw that.
Yes, I did.
I saw some people like, oh, that's, that she shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
come on.
Smash as many rackets as you want. That, like, she's pissed. She lost $1.5 million after winning the first set. I would smash all my rackets.
Well, did you see and how emotional she was in the interview after the match too? She was so distraught. I don't think she even cared about losing $1.5 million. I think it was just the fact that 2 days she just lost the U.S. Open, and 2 days later, like she has been named the number one player in the world, but she knows I just lost.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You don't care about the ranking. You want to win the title.
And her breaking the racket. I mean, she didn't do it out in public, out in the court. She did it, she doesn't know there's a camera in their room where she was by herself and just beating the living crap out of it. Then goes and throws it in the trash can. I mean, that's frustration, man. I'd rather see somebody a little frustrated than just like, oh, well. And she definitely was. But Coco Gauff, I mean, hopefully it's the start of many for her because, boy, she plays well.
Yeah, and it has been the U.S. Open. I got home from work on Monday, and I was like, there's no tennis on. I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of the afternoon. It was so much fun to watch. I'm a tennis fan now, and as long as Coco Gauff is playing, I will be watching.
Completely agree.
The most exciting player to watch right now.
Tennis fan and Coco Gauff fan. We almost got the All-American with Madison Keys, All-American final in there.
Such a brutal semifinal loss.
That would have been cool. But you know what? We'll take it. Coco gets the win. Congrats to her. Congrats to Djokovic as well in what he did. So congrats to them both. And we look forward to another weekend of football because that's what we do.